Putting up the sandy, it's full, having free. So Rob is gonna take over the room. But part of understanding different financing options for your client is to help your client get over some of their fears with the shift in market. So with educating them on their options can be a huge hurdle for them. So some of them might think only traditional options and that maybe they can't afford them. A lot of us live in our payments, right? We don't live in the purchase price, we live in what do I pay and how does it work in my budget. So Rob is here to go over those creative financial strategies to help those buyers get over that hurdle of affordability.
Great. Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate the opportunity to be here again. For those of you who have not met, my name is Rob Fry, and I'm a loan officer with Guild Mortgage. This will be my 21st year. And Guild, although new to the market, is basically RMFs, and before that, Mortgage Network. So for those of you who know that history, that's also me. The idea of today clearly is for me to talk at you, and there's a lot of concepts here that you already know on how to get buyers' homes. So I'd love for this, obviously, as most people in front of a room like to do, is clearly call this a discussion. There is an agenda in front of you. I grew up in a corporate environment, so I was always told that if you walk into a room, you have an agenda, and although I like it loose, I can't get away from it. My degree's in accounting, so I sort of function in lines. Love the gray, but function in lines. So agendas are something I put together. Please use it as a memory jogger, but also we're going to try to go down the list as quickly as possible, opening it up at the end of the questions specifically for things that you run into with highlights above. So again, appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I'll start with ultimately, when it comes to reluctance, everybody buying now has a choice to live somewhere, but they have to live somewhere. And as you know, rent is ridiculous. You know, the the 2-bath, 3-bedroom ranch down the street from the school that was $1,100 a month, it's now not. So we're seeing a lot of first-time home buyers not liking $1,500 to $2,000 in rent. So they're getting money from grandmas and stuff to get out of the basement and move into a home. Same with move-up buyers. You know, ultimately at some point, you know, people do tire of their homes, and when they do, it's my job to identify for them opportunities to use what equity they have to put a payment in front of them that they like. Now, everybody likes zero. And I kind of joke about with first-time home buyers that, you know, $200 a month would be great. Ultimately, that's not realistic, so we try to identify goals. So reluctance, you got to live somewhere. As far as creative financing goes, you're going to see that a couple of these things that we're going to talk about are things that you've already used to win, or as listing agents, you've seen people use to win. So we're not reinventing the wheel, but wanted to try to at least create a discussion about some of the things I'm using recently.
That wasn't me.
Was that an indicator? Next bullet. Thank you very much. Hope you got your line. All right, so reputation. So reputation. I wasn't looking at, I was towards your general direction.
Rob and I have worked together for 9 years. He can call on me, but I'm gonna get even.
Yeah, even or better. So agent reputation clearly is a big deal. How the contract is together is a big deal. But when a lender has a pre-approval attached, clearly that means that the person has taken the time to apply. It's my job to only put my name on a pre-approval letter that's going to settle, period. And it's a big deal. I am your partner and I am the buyer's advocate as well as yours to get the deal done. So reputation is a big deal. As I said, I've been doing this since 2001. Appraisal concerns, going to go right to it. We are not using AMC. So appraisal management companies are a third party. You order an appraisal, it goes into a bucket, that bucket gets dumped onto some people that you don't know, and then they communicate with them. We do not and have not ever used an AMC, and I don't anticipate that changing. When I order an appraisal, Glenn in my office says to an appraiser, can you do it? Yes, and we communicate directly with the appraiser. Appraisers are in my cell phone, and I communicate with them directly about condition, clearly not value, but they have become colleagues and in some cases friends of mine. So AMC thing, if you run into them, it can be extremely frustrating because the time will hold you hostage on timing, ask for a lot of money on a report.
And can I say something?
Please.
Because he uses all the same appraisers and you see these guys or girls' names a lot, you as the agent can get to know them as well. And so when we agree to pay $40,000 above the appraised price on a house and then go, oh crap, what did we just agree to do? I get to call the appraiser, because they'll let us know who it is, and I get to call the appraiser and say, hey, not trying to tell you to do your job, but would you like to see the comps that I had? And oh, by the way, here's the list of like, the shiny gold nails that they put into, every single thing that they possibly did to the house to try and get the value. If you have any issues or concerns, please reach out to me. So at the very least, I've developed a relationship with that person, and we're gonna get a shot at helping them with value if they can't find it. And that has been huge, whereas through the appraisal management companies, a lot of times you've never heard of this person and they don't really care, but this guy, Mike Connor, has talked to me 15 times, so chances are good he's gonna pick up the phone.
Why are you not, why don't you need to do that with most other lenders?
So the idea of having, to be technical, we have an appraisal desk, okay? So when I push the button to order an appraisal, I can have comments with due dates, leak screen door, that's Shannon's trick to call people to pay the sale, say that we're realtor, hit a door squeeze, you have to wiggle a little bit, and then, oh, by the way, if you have a challenge with value, call me. So having an appraisal desk allows for us to have a rotation. So we have, whatever, let's say 5 to 6 appraisers who are our partners to us ultimately. We go to an appraisal desk and do the rotation, who's ever up next, okay, gets it. Now, because they're ours, whoever's next is gonna be good. And in the event that there's someone who I know can be fast, because I saw him at lunch, I can actually help. So having a rotation ultimately is how to do it.
To be compliant, you have to have a.
To be compliant, we go through a rotation through an appraisal desk. Now, the appraisal desk is Gwen. She's Guild Mortgage, she's me.
Got it.
And she's the one who engages the appraiser directly, but I'm on top of it,
I see.
so.
Okay.
No,
I
good
can
question.
call and ask him anything.
Well, yeah, and there's tricks to getting a hold of them ultimately. You know, I could call them, you can call them. And again, not to keep going back to Shannon, but she's now in a texting relationship with more or less almost all of them. Appropriately. Okay, so, the other one is, everybody wants a cash buyer. Ultimately, they win. 20% down buyers are what I would consider next, if it's not 50%. 20% buyers in this market, when there are appraisal concerns, I am able to fix a lot of things by using simple math and programs that we have. Now, candidly, everybody has them, but no one really maybe understands effectively how to use them. So I'm gonna use a current example. Got an appraisal yesterday, appraised for 210, list price, or excuse me, contract price is 215. That $5,000 difference for 20,000 or for 20% down buyer is $4,000. They don't want to spend 4,000. Okay, so we're going to keep the value, and they're going to finance MI, mortgage insurance, upfront for $400. So their out of pocket doesn't change $1 because they're able to borrow the exact same amount, and their payment basically goes up $20 because they're borrowing $500 more. So it works, and what it does is it immediately then puts out this immediate concern. Because when buyers hear a cut, they immediately think every dollar is theirs. And in a lot of cases, I'm talking hundreds of dollars to allow them to borrow the same amount and effectively put their out of pocket the same. It's a big deal. The 215 to 210, clearly that's an easy one. But I had a 570 price, 515 appraisal. That's awful. Okay, no one likes it, but in the market that we're coming out of, ultimately, hopefully we're away from that, but it happened. And for $5,000 financed, they didn't have a change in out of pocket. Now, does someone want to finance $5,000 more? Not necessarily. They also don't want to write a check for $55,000. So it's a big deal. And unfortunately, in the past 6 months, I've done it a lot. But as soon as the appraisal comes out, there's a cut. We have 24 hours before the buyer gets it. In that 24 hours, I can effectively create a plan with you on how to make the call if there's an appraisal cut. So here's how we're going to fix it. And ultimately, here's your change. In a lot of cases, you were happy using $50,000. Well, now you're still $50,000, your payment went up $30, and then because the appraisal contingency typically was removed, you're buying it. So again, it can be a big deal, and with your help in that 24 hours, we develop a plan to do it. Bridge loans, we do bridge loans, and you'll see I got kind of technical here, which we don't include in the DTI. Debt to income is a big deal, and when a bridge loan has to get kicked in to create money to buy, sometimes that bridge loan and first loan that we're trying to either pay off if it exists becomes a challenge to qualify. We don't use it. So all they're really qualifying for is the new loan and they get the money. Now, as your partner, it is my job to get the deal done. Bridge loans are expensive. They're 1%, you gotta get title insurance, and it's work. So bridge loans, although effective, are my worst case. My job to try to identify a better way. Temporary 401k loan, grandma's injection, you know, whatever it takes. But in the event that there's no other option, bridge loans are good. Mortgage contingency, clearly it's a big button, people need to understand it. I think the misconception for a long time, even with me, was if you uncheck the box, you're paying cash for the house, you have to buy it. I would think that was kind of funny. I'm like, wow, that's kind of a big deal. So I don't want to pay cash for the house. Well, ultimately, as you know, it's just a deposit. But in many cases, it's a big deal. In order to win, it's a big deposit. So when you start talking about waiving contingency, if they're self-employed, I'm gonna rip apart tax returns, because I said my degree's in accounting. So I'm gonna yank out of the tax return as much as I can to ultimately make everybody comfortable with their approval, so that they're comfortable waiving the box or checking the box. Conventional versus government, clearly in a market like you're just coming out of, I say coming out of, it is settling a little bit. I am starting to see much more FHA and VA across my desk. I'm not really seeing a whole lot of seller help, but I'm not seeing as much double transfer. So when I say coming out of, I'm not trying to tell you what you may or may not think that I know, because I don't know you. But across my desk is J&W. But at the same time, it's my job to find a way for a 96.5 FHA buyer to become a 97% conventional buyer or better. Again, I'll use the term grandpas too. Finding money in those pockets will help save retirement.
And Rob's good at these conversations with people. So particularly if you're not as comfortable with having some of these conversations, do a three-way. Let him ask the questions, let him handle some of that stuff for you, because it works. It absolutely works. And then you brought the expert. You don't have to be the expert.
Well, a lot of times you don't want to call into the pockets.
Right.
I'm already there. Like I'm deep dive guy. I mean, there's nothing casual about getting financing now. Now clearly we're going to make it as easy and efficient as we can, but I'm already there. So in the event this conversation needs to take place, I can ask. Calling a listing meeting, highly effective for a couple reasons. One, it's an opportunity for me to get information for you. And in that conversation, I can ask key questions or call them pointed questions. You know, in the event that we're competing, oh yeah, we are, or oh, we're actually at this point, we're not. That's all information I can hear back with you. And if I get the permission from the buyer to unload, I can go over credit, DTI, money in the bank. Not necessarily where they work and what they make, but ultimately show them that I've done my due diligence, this thing's good. And again, I don't put my name on it unless it's gonna sell. Whether it's 2% down, 50% down, ultimately my name has to be worth something, or else you get my pre-approval letters and you're like, well, that one's out, and I can't afford to do that, nor can my family. So calling a listing agent, appraisal rush. Because appraisals are partners to us, we can say I need a due date of Friday. And when the three of them laugh and the fourth doesn't, we're getting it Friday. Or they call me and they go, okay, Friday, you're saying Friday at 10? Or Friday, I mean, it's that specific, like I can get there Thursday morning, you're not gonna get it Friday first thing. Well, in the event that we're gonna already get it into underwriting over the weekend, maybe Friday at 5 is good. So again, appraisal communication is good, and in the event that we need to rush, we can get it. PIWs or property inspection waivers, we're still getting them. Not necessarily just about somebody putting 30% down. The PIW is obtained through Fannie and Freddie, not Guild, not any other mortgage company. It's coming directly from the top. And they're going into assessment and transfer records to identify value. So even though a person's got $1 million in the bank, 800 credit, a great job. If they go into that system and this house is not worth 300, you're not getting a PIW. And ultimately the same button I'm pushing, everybody's pushing. But we're still getting. Quick closing. Underwriters are also friends of mine. And I also have the ability to do what's called direct underwriting. So in the event we need to move fast, settle Tuesday, settle next Thursday or Friday, I have the ability with my, candidly, my production level and reputation in the company, to put a loan in the underwriting rate for my desk. No processing, no cleanup. And that can help. Now, I made a note. There are also times when you as an agent reach out to a listing agent, find out that quick's not great. They haven't really picked the house or it needs some time. So although I wrote quick closing, I've had people, you've seen, you know, you write an offer for like 20, 30 days to close. You only find out that they needed 90. Well, we have 90-day locks. I can do extended locks. So in the straight market where that's a big deal, If you have to go long, if the seller wants to go long, I can provide protection on that. Extended builder locks, we can do those up to 18 months. I'm doing one now where at the time the guy was super upset, cap was 5.5, and he was paying no points. We're about there now, but at the same time, he feels like a genius, because now he can go back to that date and effectively pay a point to try to get 4 7/8. So extended builder locks are a big deal. And then, you'll see I put a note here, which is the kind of catch-all. Double transfer pass-through, that's a big deal. Inspection. VA is the only one out there that requires an inspection, okay? A lot of people think that FHA is going to require an inspection, and it's not that way. It's basically just a licensed FHA appraiser, no inspections. FHA and USDA require well and septic distances. So when you know there's well and septic, we're gonna need to measure, and by we, not me and not you, typically somebody who is a contractor. Now, I use that term very loosely intentionally, because if you have a contractor buddy who's got contractor letterhead and a tape measure long enough, put it on letterhead, those are the distances. It's funny, I say that, it wasn't meant to be funny, somehow sort of comes out as that contractor. But anytime it's under like 100 feet, 75 feet, we can work directly with the municipality or township to try to get the SEO to say, yeah, you're good, we'll grandfather it in. So again, inspection, VA termite, for those of you that always found it kind of annoying, to get a listing, as a listing agent, you got a contract and it's like, hey seller, got a great offer, but you have to pay $75, tell everybody you don't oppose. And it was just that one thing, and you're like, really? I have to pay? And so it created a conversation. No matter how people feel about military and whether or not they deserve the financing, they didn't like the fact that they were paying something on behalf of the buyer. That's gone. Buyers can now pay it. And I could pay it. In many cases, at least it's been a couple of them where I'm even. FHA flip, because we're starting to see a couple more FHA deals. When an investor buys a home and flips it quickly, there used to be a 90-day rule that would get a lot of lenders. We don't use that. To get around it, I don't like around it, it sounds shady, but it's not. See, that I thought was funny. If the investor puts on the market today and bought it 30 days ago, did a quick flip, there are lenders out there that can't do anything with a contract when they're 60 days. Right? We put under contract immediately, or the appraisal number, or the case number. But the only thing we do is on the 91st day, the buyer signs the contract again. And be very specific, the buyer only. So in this case, the seller doesn't really have to like get engaged again. On the 91st day, the buyer signs the contract again and we'll settle. I would like to say we'll settle 95 days from ownership change, just to give us sufficient. But in the event that we have to, we've done the 91st day morning and 91st day afternoon.
Does that give you a new case number?
No, no, it's different.
Is it 90 days from the time it's recorded in the
Yeah.
courthouse,
Transfer,
or 90 days from the time that they settle?
transfer, recording.
Because sometimes, you know, a title company is gonna drag their feet before they get it to the courthouse, then you got the monetary, it could be 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, it can be, and I think what's interesting is, depending on the investor, they're going to typically use a title company that's not gonna do that, or an attorney's office. So it depends on the investor, I guess.
I'll
You know,
give you
if
an
it's Jimmy,
example.
the investor versus ABC LLC or whatever, it is. But no, it's a good question. It's the same way when we work with bankruptcies and foreclosures, like a foreclosure date, okay, we actually use the deed transfer date. So, yeah, transfer dates are a big deal, pretty much everything.
And that's just with one appraisal?
Great question. So if you double value, you need 2 appraisals for 480 days. The buyer can pay for the second. So the answer to that question is it doubles, yeah. Now, in the event that you're working with a decent investor, okay, and it's close, I've done them where it didn't double. Okay, it was really close. Like $100 close. And ultimately you find a way to make it work. Just because of the timing. That's it. That's all I got. Yeah.
You didn't think that last part was funny either, did you?
No, I didn't. My level of predictability is like, I'm a better LO than I am stand-up predictor. But again, you'll see my names on here, websites on here, emails on here. Clearly, this was pretty quick. And there's nothing new ultimately, other than as your partner, whoever you're working with needs to help you get the house. That's first. And, I'd love to be the one to help you do it. So again, thanks for letting me come in.
Any other questions for Ronald before we let him? Any questions for Ronald before we let him? Okay, and then before, you want, are you sure? So really quick, the GHAR school supply fundraiser does end today. So Tammy is picking up the boxes upstairs. She said she'd be willing to come back by 4, but then I thought, I don't feel like I could drive on whatever. So if you do want to make a donation before Tammy leaves, just make sure you see her, the great, fundraiser, so they can get her school provided back to school in 17 days. For me,
Tammy, are you only taking supplies or are you taking money?
I mean, I can do a part run, we have very much $5 to run, totally up to you, the box is kind of in return to car.
Can they, can cars take financial?
You can definitely call in, talk to Brooke. Yeah.
Thank you so much for ordering. You're welcome. I don't know. Yes, Tammy, you know we have one in front. I love to say, I'm gonna have a funny.
Yeah.
And there was, there's something. Yeah.
Okay, I'll grab it.
Okay. Well, awesome. Well, thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, Rob, for that really informative session. We appreciate it. Anything else for the really important? You may be free. Maybe free.
I like the back of that. Yeah. Hey, next. Yeah, if you want to do it and buy that.
Fine.
Yeah, I can see it makes sense. I call them. I don't know, anybody want to talk to that? I made this number last night.